I'm Jessica and I'm from the University of Zurich, and I'll be introducing SYLVA, which is a learning management system we developed.
Hi. So I'm Jessica and I'm from the University of Zurich. This is my colleague Mike, also from the university. And together we developed SYLVA, which is a platform that we developed. And Mike will join back at the end if you have any Q&A. So the first thing I want to talk about is at the university, we have a grading problem. And it's not just at the university. I think it's a problem for all educators. That when you consider, for example, grading a typical final exam, this could take 1 minute per question to grade. So quite simple, quite easy. But then when you consider one final exam, it's 20 questions, 20 minutes grading one exam per student. Now, when you also consider at the University of Zurich, our introductory mathematics course, this is 500 students. And this is virtually impossible to use just manual grading because, right, this is already 10,000 minutes. That's 3 full working weeks of just grading. And that's a lot of time. That's very labor intensive. We're a little lazy. So it's something that we thought was a problem and where SYLVA comes in. So SYLVA is this fully integrated platform where professors can create their materials, distribute it, and benefit from the automated grading. So I'm just going to switch over now to SYLVA here on a web browser. And I'm just going to go through a demo assessment so you can see what the student experience is like. So here is kind of the introductory page for this 5-question assessment. And here the first question is a randomized multiple choice question. Very straightforward. A lot of platforms can do this, right? Solve x plus 1 equals 5 for x. So here I'll answer the solution, which is 4. And when I click submit, I can go to question 2, write code with less than 15 characters that evaluates the following. So here now you're eliciting a code response from the students. And here I'll just use range for this example and click submit. And for the third question, so here now you can see we're now including some visualization. So which plot shows exactly 6 extrema? Maybe for this question, I don't know the answer, so I'll answer this one incorrectly so you can see the grade results at the end. And here, so the fourth one is name a city within 500 miles to London, but outside the UK. And you can already see in this answer box the Mathematica symbol. So we're now using the knowledge base built in Mathematica. And here, maybe I write Brussels. And for the last question, this is an interactive response. So here you can see the sign plot, and now we're eliciting the student to interact with giving the answer. So the question is, where is the local minimum of the function? Move the locator to give your answer. So here's the locator, and now I'm controlling where it is. And I know the minimum is around here, so I can answer that. Click submit. And the minute I click the final submission for the entire assessment, it's all being automatically graded in the cloud. And now you can see that was pretty quick. Now this is my results page. So as a student, this is what I would see for a self-test. So if I scroll down here, I can see some text, but what's kind of more maybe interesting for students is to see this part. So the 5 questions I see, I got 4 correct, 1 incorrect. But the nice thing is, for example, if I click on one of the questions, I can see the original question, what my answer was, and a brief explanation of why that is the correct solution. If I click on number 3, which was the one I answered incorrectly, I see my answer, which was this top one. I can additionally see what was the correct answer, and then also a brief explanation. So as a student, I can really understand why I got it wrong, what is the correct solution, and I don't need to go and ask the professor afterwards. So now I'm going to go back to show you now what it looks like from the instructor side to create the exact assessment. So SYLVA is an add-on to Mathematica. So here, just go to palettes. I can click Creo. That's just the name we use for the authoring tool. and it opens this. Of course, I can create new documents here, but I already have created this assessment, so I'm just going to open it. And this is the interface that an instructor would see when they're creating the assessments. Very simple, straightforward interface. You have 2 tabs, 1 introduction and 2 questions. So for the introduction, this is optional. You can include any text that you want the students to be aware of, any rules, etc. Now for the questions part, here are the 5 questions. So this first one was solve x plus 1 equals 5 for x. Standard multiple choice, I can add as many choices as I'd like here, and I can determine which ones are correct by just clicking on these toggles. Then when I scroll down under reporting, it's optional if you would like to show the student the correct solution, as well as it's optional to provide extra explanations for the correct solution. And if you see in the title, we call it randomized multiple choice. So I'll just show you quickly. After you make any question, you can always preview it so you can see what it looks like from the student side. And here now, all of the answers are randomized, right? I just added that new one that's called alternative here, but it's now in the 3rd slot. So for example, if you're in a large classroom setting, this kind of helps with cheating as well. And now for the second question. So this is the one where we're eliciting a code response from the students. So if you look at the original question, write code with less than 15 characters that evaluates the following list. There are kind of 3 different conditions, right? The answer must be 15 characters or less, the answer must be a list, and it must be that exact list. So it's exactly how you write out the question as an instructor. The first line of code here, you see the student's given answer must simply be less than 15 characters. The second one, it must be a list. And the third, the answer must result and evaluate to this range. And getting each of those components correct will award the student 1 point. So just to show you this kind of point system, if I preview the question, so right, the question is asking whatever code is input, it evaluates to this output. But maybe I don't know, and I know at least this is pretty much correct as a student. So if I submit this, you'll see that actually I don't get all of the points. It's only 2 out of 3 points, and that's because it didn't meet the condition of being 15 characters or less. But also, as you can imagine, with code, there are so many different possible solutions, right? Earlier, I showed you the answer using range, but maybe I want to use a different solution using table. So here, 9. And I submit this one. This answer is also considered fully correct because it meets all 3 conditions. And here for the third example, so this was where you saw the sign plots. And you'll notice now in the question name, there's actually no number here. And it's just a text variable that says number, because now we're including parameters. So parameters allows us to define a variable between a certain range. And here the range is between 3 to 7. So it will randomly choose a number to put into the question, which will then also change the possible choices that the students see. And this, again, will help with randomization and also help students kind of reinforce concepts if they're taking this exam multiple times by themselves at home. And so here, if I preview this one, you'll see, so the question is, which plot shows exactly 6 extrema? And if you keep this image in your mind, I'm just going to refresh it and open a new preview. And every time I click preview, it's opening a new cloud object. Here now it says 4 extrema, and all of the solutions are showing different possible answers. So this is really great for reinforcing concepts, but also to avoid cheating if you happen to be testing in a large classroom. And for the fourth question, this was the one where we're using the knowledge base in Mathematica specifically. So you can imagine this question, name a city within distance to London but outside the UK. That's thousands and thousands of cities. But instead of having to list all of those possible cities, we just use the knowledge base in Mathematica using geodistance. So the first condition is that the city must be a certain distance away from London, and the second condition is it cannot be in the UK. So really simple, really straightforward. And for the last question, so this is the one with the locator. And as interactive as this question is, it's really simple to create such a question. So here under controller body, you simply make a sign plot, you add a locator, you make it dynamic, and wherever the student places this locator on this coordinate, that becomes the point. And from this point, you're asking, does this point fall within the region of the minimum? But of course, with such interactive type questions, you can always maybe be a little off of the exact answer, which is why you can also build in kind of a tolerance level. So just to show you what this means. So this was the exact plot you saw earlier, but we're giving this tolerance level to the students so that as long as the locator falls within this region, they're correct. Because the point of these questions is not to frustrate the students, it's really just to reinforce that they understand what the questions are asking. So that's all of the 5 questions, but at the beginning I mentioned the tool's main benefit, or one of the main benefits, is this automated grading. So in addition to being able to set up questions in a way that you don't have to grade at the end, you have a final summary report as well, which is automatically generated. So I'm just going to go back here. So this is a list of some courses that my colleague Mike has been involved with where SYLVA was used. And just a couple of months ago, the programming bootcamp finished, and this specific class had 88 students registered. And you can see if I click through now, you can see all of the lecture materials, which I can show you at the end if you're interested. Here are all the assignments that were given to students. And then here are the final results for those exams. So if I click on final grade, I can now see a summary for the entire course. So in Switzerland, our grade scale is out of 6 points. So you can see the 4.21 is on a 6 scale, 72% passed, 25 failed. And the really nice thing is you can see, for example, this distribution of all of the grades, as well as where all of the students fall in relation to each other. So for example, if I'm interested in the performance of this student, I can click on his name, I can see how he performed on all of the assignments, as well as even open a new tab where I can see more details about his assignments and see where he falls in relation to the other students. And this is also available to the students. So they can see a full summary of their own grades, as well as kind of where they fall in the course. And I think that's all we had planned to show you, but of course, if you have any questions or anything, we'd be happy to answer them. Go ahead.
Particular test, do you analyze which questions the students might get incorrect overall, so that maybe if they're missing a point or something like that within a certain subject area?
Yeah, sorry, can you repeat the question?
So within a given test, they get 10 questions, and
Yep.
you're finding that all the students are maybe getting number 3 wrong or number 6 wrong. You know, maybe they're missing a theory, they're missing something, a piece of the puzzle.
Yep.
Analyze that as well.
Yes, and so off of this question, so one thing is, of course, even though this is all automatized, it's still possible to make mistakes on the instructor side, right? The way you phrase a question or write it out. So there's 2 parts. One, there's a feedback section that is going to be released soon, where on each specific question, the student can say, this, I want to kind of refute this, or I want to provide feedback on this question. I don't think it's right, or I think my solution is correct. Can you look at it? That's one thing. And the second thing is, once all of the grades are finalized or finished, then the instructor can still go in and review everything. So if the instructor sees, okay, question 4, everyone got wrong, is it really because they missed something or did I miss something? So you always have the final say. Yep.
Right. Yeah. So, excuse me. I will try to show this. Here we go. Again, sorry, the wrong tab. So I mean, it happens all the time. So you make a mistake. You set up the grading function incorrectly, or you miss a case and students find it, and then of course you don't want to kind of punish them for your mistake. So what you can do is like listen to the students and hear some of these requests. So they say like, yeah, in question 1, this or that happened, and then what we can do is we can reject or accept a request, and based on the request, we can change the points or grades for all the students or just for one student. And this is very convenient. I'll show you this example. So when you grade an assessment, then usually it looks like this. So what you would do is you look at the question, and when nobody got full points in such a large class, chances are that you made a mistake. And so it's very easy now to adjust the points here, and you can immediately regrade the whole class, and you can do this afterwards. Then it's tracked so that the students always know what happened or what the changes were. And so that's very transparent. So what we are working on for the next version is that you can change all these grading functions you have seen. So for that, we need kind of like replicate some of the functionalities you have seen in the Mathematica tool in Creo. So we will move this to the cloud, and so then we can adjust this as well. So yeah, it's quite flexible.
2 years I was a student in one of his courses during my master's, and I remember the very first class where we used SYLVA. Of course, as a student with new tech, when you're so used to one way, you're of course open-minded about it, but hesitant, right? But I will say, this using SYLVA compared to another LMS we use at the university called OLAT, the simplicity of this one with the interface, I mean, you have 3 buttons where your assignments are, your grades, compared to OLAT where it's so many classes, so many tabs everywhere. It's just a lot of distraction. That was the first thing. And second thing is, to be honest, there's just a lot of transparency on this, because I can see every single grade I receive, and I can click into the grade, and then I see every single solution. And of course, as we mentioned, if there's ever a time when I felt it was unfair or something, I could report it. And I mean, because this is a work in progress, of course, now I'm on this side, we're really happy for that feedback, because it's very possible it's something that we did wrong or we should look into. Yeah.
And so I'm just adding one more thing from the teacher's perspective. What has radically reduced is the number of exam reviews. So usually what we would do is after we publish the grades 1 month later, after everything was hand graded, then we set a date where students can come to our office, and then they can look into their exam, like their paper copy, and then they start bargaining. So in question 3, don't you think this could be like 1 more point? No, like then I would not fail this course, and so on and so on. So this has radically reduced. So students understand, okay, if it's graded by a computer, then probably there is no mistake. And so this is very convenient. Also, like answering these requests, like in a large course, 8 assignments in the exam, so you get like lots of emails and then answering them in the team, and this is quite difficult. And so for us, I've been teaching a course, or this programming bootcamp with Roman Meda. So 2 lecturers, and we were both able to answer the requests and yeah, collaborate, like creating the materials and so on. Yeah. You first.
Yeah. The authoring system seems really simple. I mean, we are working with a Pearson platform and it's far more complicated. So I think that's a good point. I just can't see the variety of questions you can cover. So do you also have, let's say, text analysis or, sort of essays, or how do teachers find inputting those questions and how long does it take them?
Yeah. Trying to get this back here. Our idea was, compared to other tools which offer like dozens of very special question types, we wanted to come up with something more general. So what we have here is what you see is like this answer type, and we only have 3 different answer types at the moment, but actually you can create like most of the question types you see in other tools using those 3. So the first one is selection. So Jessica showed this. So where you have this just these alternatives, and you can then go to the options and do something like take a subset. So you can put in a question pool, and then only like every student only gets like 5 out of 100 questions from your pool. You can make it multiple selections. So then you can say like 2 or 3 are correct. And you can have this like none of the above, this default answer and things like this. So this is our approach on making or keeping it as simple as possible, but still having the flexibility. And when you go to the free response is just anything. So we use all the interpreters which are available in Wolfram language, and as you can see, there are like these numbers and integers and so on, strings and text. But we can also use color or city, what you've seen, and even images. So we can create an image and then use image identify to grade it. So this is a very like powerful question type. So you can upload an Excel notebook, and then you just tell it how to grade this Excel notebook. So all that is possible, and with the interactive response. So you probably know this Wolfram demonstrations project. So our idea was you can just take a demonstration or a manipulate you used in your lecture materials, put it here and say like, okay, so these are the points or parameters I'm interested in tracking. And then you just go ahead and set up the conditions to grade it, and that's it. But still, you can have thousands of different interactive fields. Yeah.
I have a completely different type of question. What about legal issues? We had a conversation with the Technical University of Munich.
Yeah.
And their response was they want to do it on a piece of paper simply because of legal reasons. If they are being challenged, they have a piece of paper and they can tell this student has done it. So question number 1, how do you make sure that the student who's supposed to take the test does take the test, not somebody else? And B, how do you preserve the answers and so on in a way that it cannot be altered anymore, so that it cannot be claimed, oh, that's not what I said, it clicked something else.
Yeah. So far, we had no legal issues yet. What we do, like our exams are usually in a classroom at the university. So the assignments are take home, but this is kind of like a issue for the honor code. it would be possible to add more authentication methods. I mean, every student can only log into his or her account. But yes, so we haven't like invested in making this more like unique, and it's actually really tough. So you can do things like voice recognition or images or something like this, but we haven't done this yet. And sorry, the second question was.
So yeah, why not conserve it in such a way that you can prove, okay, this has
Yeah,
been the result, and that's been determined with.
So what happens when a student gives an answer, each question is a separate cloud object, and they're all stored in a separate database. And we take backups every 15 minutes.
No blockchain or something of that sort.
No. Yeah. And we preserve all the answers, and the cloud objects are no longer accessible, so no one can change it afterwards. Right, so we are happy to answer more questions.